Okay, so we are on day 2 of Mishlei 25:3. Shamaim larum va'aretz la'omek v'lev malachim ein cheker. So the sky is for. I'm going to go with the sky is for height. And the earth is for depth. And there's no investigating actually but there's no investigating the heart of kings. Okay. So the questions were, what's the subject of the pasuk? Propositionally, what does la rum and la omek mean? And what is the entire clause saying? What does lave mean in this context? What does ein cheker mean? And to what extent? Does this mean it's not possible to investigate or not fitting to investigate? What is it about lave malachim that is not subject to chakira? Isn't a king just a person? Why wouldn't his lave be subject to the same kind of degree of cheker as any other person? And if this is true about other people, what is the difference? 6, is there any special significance to the fact that it says malachim rather than melech? What prompted Shlomo to pluralize melech when many pasukim in the Mishlei use melech in the derech nista to refer to Hashem or the Yitzhak? What's the relationship to the previous pasuk? What's the relationship between the two halves? What's the practical application, and who's the audience? So we had basically three approaches yesterday. We had our collective approach, which is basically that the Havamina is that you can understand the king's lave, meaning their heart, their thought process, their motives. And by king, we mean any person in a position of leadership. But in reality, the king has a bird's eye perspective, and he's making decisions from a completely different perspective than you. And so you just can't, you're not even in the parsha. And we said that support for this interpretation is that it's not saying you shouldn't investigate, it's saying you can't, is that you should investigate the heavens and the earth, but like it's just very, very hard to grasp. So too with the king. Right. I think that was that. Okay. So then we had the Mitzvah's David, who said, you can't know the Rochav Lev HaMelech, which is the bandwidth of the king's attention that he can give. There are so many things that come before the king, and that itself produces a different decision-making protocol or a different approach to decision-making than the ordinary person, ordinary person has a much fewer set of tasks. And then our David, not the Metzudas version, said it's not fitting to investigate the heart of the king. And that's because since the king is in such a different psychological place because of his either the weight of the crown or the burden of leadership or something like that, you really can't know what it's like to be in that position unless you are there. And even the people who are close to him don't really know. And that would be Lev being the emotions. Okay, so a few just addendums to what we did yesterday. I saw this Rashi, okay? Rashi says, Ein cheker l'rum shemaim ul'omek haaretz ul'lev malachim. L'rum shemaim ul'omek haaretz ul'lev malachim ein cheker. Shekama dinim b'ayim lifnehem v'kama milchamos. So many laws come before them, or many judgments. Laws, I think, is dinim. Actually, it could be judgments, like cases come before them, and many wars. Ulachulam tzrichem laseis lev, and all of them need need attention, basically. Okay, here's the part. V'im kol halashonos medabrim v'kol hayadayim kosvos ein maspikim lichtov chalala shel rashus. So that's quoting a Gemara, which I never seen, which is in Shabbos Yud Aleph Amud Aleph. Amar Rava bar Machshavah. I don't know that's how you pronounce it. I think most people say Machshavah. Amar Rav Chama. No one ever pronounces these names correctly. Amar Rav Chama bar Guria. Amar Rav. Im yihu kol hayamim dio. If all the seas would be water, ink. Agamim kulmusim, and the lakes would be. That's funny. They say the swamps would be wells. Agam. I always thought Agam was lake. Agamayim. All right. Would be pens or quills. V'shamayim yirios, and the heavens would be parchment. Okay, not curtains, but parchment. Kol bnei adam lavlarin, and all people scribes. Ein maspikim lichtov chalala shel rashus. There would not be enough to write the chalala shel rashus. What does that mean? Rashi says, omek libam, the depth of their heart. Shehu tzarech lios lo lev l'kama medinos lamas hakatzuv. Okay, that they need to give their attention to many countries, provinces for taxation, for the set tax, and many wars, and to many laws, everything on one day, right? And so then my qira'ah, what's the pasuk? Amarav Masharshia, Shemaim Larum, Va'aretz La'omek, V'lev Malachim Ein Cheker. Okay, so that's that's the Gemara's interpretation of our pasuk. Okay, so I think that is a if we were to pick the pshat of the pasuk, I think that is a good pshat, and I think that's where the Metzudas David got it from. Any additional points on this idea about like what the king gives attention to? I mean, I think we covered it pretty well yesterday, but okay. Next is I wanted to show you just another Mishlei methodology thing. Who did I do here? The Ibn Kaspi. Oh, sorry, Emmanuel Haromי. Okay, says Amar Achar Shemaim Hashemaim Larum Va'aretz La'omek. Klomer Shegova Hashemaim Va'omek Haaretz Ein Lahem Cheker. Kain Lev Malachim Ein Lo Cheker. Va'inyan Sheyadiasim Makefes Al Inyanim Rabim. So their knowledge encompasses many things. Ein Lahem Kates. Without end. V'hu ki'ilu amar rum hashemaim omek haaretz v'lev malachim shlosha ela ein lahem cheker. So I think that's closer to Isaac's interpretation, that their perspective is greater. Then he says amar kain derech haflaga. Okay, he says this by way of exaggeration. Okay, and remember haflaga, dor haflaga means the generation of exaggeration. Dor hapalaga is the generation of dispersion. So this is an example. He says it by way of hyperbole, basically. Ki rum hashemaim omek haaretz yesh lahem cheker. You can know the thing, right? This is what you were saying yesterday, right? Vinoda shiuram rayos amitios. You can know the measurements through clear proofs. Okay, and then he spends like a long paragraph calculating the omek haaretz, yeah, which is really cool. I asked ChatGPT like how accurate it is, and it basically said that his processes are accurate, but the numbers are off because I guess they had certain wrong initial assumptions. So yeah, and then similarly, Ibn Kaspi פירוש Sheni says, "Hine Shlomo Achar she'amar shechavod malachim hu davar nechkar rutzani musag." After saying that the kavod malachim is something that can be grasped, musag achar hachakira hamufleges, after like a lot of analysis. Yomar ki yesh bam davar acher bilti musag laolam. He says afterwards that there is something that is not graspable, hu libam rutzonam, which is their hearts and their wills. Ki akuf alev mikol miyadaeno. So I don't know why he quotes this pasuk. The way this pasuk is usually translated, it's in Yirmiyahu. The heart is crooked above all. The heart above of all is crooked. Who knows it? There's a movie that starts off with that quote. What movie did I see recently? Rewatch recently. All right, I'll have to look it up. So I don't know if he's trying to imply that the king's heart is crooked, or he's talking about the heart of the people who are doing the cheker. I mean, it sounds like it would be the king because it's lev malachim. V'yoser mikulam lev hamalachim b'haflaga muvu'eres. V'zehu amro v'lev malachim ein cheker. That's what it means that the lev malachim ein cheker. So I don't know what he means by this, but I wanted to read this part though. V'hine yadua mi malachas hahigayon ki hakasha mitziuso yomar alav nimna mitziuso. So it's known from the science of logic or the art of logic that that something that is like very difficult to exist, or like meaning improbable or like hard to exist, you can say about it its existence is impossible. Okay, and I guess there's something missing from the manuscript here. Al lev malachim v'im yitachin shema'as k'tzas ro'e pnei panav tamid v'anshe tzaso yechaker v'yusag. Even if this goes to David's interpretation, even if it's possible, somewhat possible for those who are in contact with the king constantly and the people in his council to for it to be investigated and discerned by them. It's very difficult. To the point where you can say about it, ein cheker definitively. Even though it's possible with difficulty. Okay, so this, I think, is something that we did not consciously articulate as a split in how to learn the pasuk. That in cheker, I think we're learning as impossible, but this is a good tool in Mishlei now that impossible could just mean very, very difficult. Okay, so I think it's just a good methodology tool here. So, and I think it fits in with what David Lichter said, which is that the people who are close to the king have a better shot at understanding it. But even, I was giving this example with the crown, even people who are very, very, very close to the king can't really know what it's like to be in that position. So I think you could still say ein cheker here. Okay, Any thoughts on any of that? That's all like wrapping up from last time. Yeah.
So then they're saying that you really could understand it, but saying that you can't is just a question of wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Then why wouldn't you look into it? You could look into how this strategy.
Right. So I think maybe what you should do then is just be very, very cautious about certainty in that area, and also do the work. Like practically saying you need to do the work to be able to be not just thorough, but like factor this into account about all the difficulties and really understanding. Like, let's say you're going to evaluate a presidential decision. First of all, like if you don't have access to all the same data, you can't do it. And if you're the president's like confidant and you do have access, then beware that you're not weighing things the same way because the king is in the actual position, the buck stops here, so I think it's just like cautionary reminders for those people. Yeah. One more thing also. I actually don't know if he minds me saying this. Okay, since I didn't ask for permission. Actually, hold on a second. I'll ask, can I share this in shiur anonymously or anonymously?
No.
Not a real word, but anonymously. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We have our yeshiva guy who's in government, and we had a brief discussion on the way to yeshiva about this in chat, and he had some insights. Okay. Okay. So now I want to show you an approach that none of us even considered. Okay. Actually, sorry. Hold on. Emmanuel Haromי had a second shot. He says you can say it. Okay. He says you can say it in my name. Okay. Good. All right. So Jake Adler, right, has been in I mean, as far as I know, the highest position of government that anyone in yeshiva has, and has been, I don't know what his formal position title is, but like, basically the Jewish liaison to the governor, right, of New York for a while, right. So we were talking about this, and he said, I didn't share our pshat. Okay, he said I just shared the Gemara, and he said, nothing has given me more appreciation for the universe than this job. And I was like, what do you mean by that? So he said, New York State, as a fraction of the Earth's total surface, is about 0.0277%. We are a giant state, and we are 0.027% of the Earth. We are a populous state, and we have like 20 million people, and we are 0.243% of the world's population. I get hundreds of emails a day from people for things. People who report in to me get dozens. The person I report to gets thousands. The governor gets an order larger. Humanity is tiny in comparison to the bigger picture. So like, I didn't give him the shot, and I didn't even give him the puzzle we were working with, but he's expressing this in terms of the idea of like all the details, and tasks him before him. He's expressing it in terms of the proportion to the earth and the heavens, So like, I was like, wow, that's amazing that his mind like naturally went there. And I told him about Emmanuel Haromí like calculating the earth, and so I was like, oh, that's pretty just interesting. How I wonder if like Shlomo or Chizkiyahu, that's why their mind went that way. So I thought that was pretty cool. Okay, Emmanuel Haromí had another shot. Sorry, no, that's going to be third. Okay, so let's go to Sadigon, and this is not your Sadigon. This is the parish of Sadigon. So I think he's a Das Yachid here. Okay, I didn't see anyone else who says this. Sorry, I saw one other person. Devarav ele mechayivim shetei machshavas hamelech ein lamala mimena. So he's learning this not as descriptive, but prescriptive. Not saying what is true of the king, but what should be true. Okay, what the king should do. So they're saying these words necessitate that the thoughts of the king should be of the utmost height, the highest thoughts. Just as the heavens, there is nothing above them, because there's no foundation above the heavens. I don't know what he means by that. Okay, fine. So too, it's proper and even obligatory for the governance of the ruler that there should be nothing higher than that. Im haya hamelech ha'omen mimale hadavar b'machshavto v'im lav sarech shihu hasov v'moso mashlimim hadavar. So in other words, either the king should be able to like accomplish this with his own thinking, or if not, he needs to surround himself by people who can help bring this to perfection. So that the governance can be at the highest level. Okay, so he's basically saying the king's conduct should be like as if the heavens are governing it. In other words, it should be like in equivalent modern terms, like the laws of physics, absolutely perfect and irreproachable. So hold that thought. I want to read the Me'iri, because I think he can be paired with this, but you'll tell me, and if not, we'll split them up. So the Me'iri, v'amar shemaim larum v'aretz la'omek v'aretz havav ha'alaf kamutzim. Okay, fine. V'nimtza ki kain shlosha shemaim chadashim v'aretz hakadasha. Okay, fine. V'aretz rufaim tapil. All right, that's grammar. V'zeh v'o kol shesmuch l'shemaim ratz l'om shemaim v'aretz. All right, fine. V'ha'inyan, the idea. Even though the heavens have a known measurement for their height, even though it's very large, and same thing with the earth. So each day the king needs to renew his seichel. Okay, so this is also I'm not saying it's the same shot. I'm saying that he's taking it prescriptively, that this is telling the king what he should do. Okay, based on the causes that come before him, and from things changing qualitatively or quantitatively. This is warning the king to be careful and to sharpen his intellect, in particular on each and every matter, and not rely on one from the other. I think he means, again, that don't assume that factors are the same in particular from day to day. Okay, like make sure you're working with up-to-date knowledge. It's also warning him to warn his advisors, ruach yote yosher, that they should be trustworthy and upright in their advice. Shochad umechir lahatos mishpat, and that they should not be seduced by a bribe or a price to pervert justice. U'rasalif derech salula, and to corrupt a smooth path. Ki'az yakel kavod hamelach, because that will cause people to degrade the honor of the melech. V'timat yiraso me'al pnei ha'am, and it'll diminish his reverence in the eyes of the people. Bir osam silif durachav ibus or chosav, when they see the corruption in his way. Okay, that's a separate thing. So I do think it's a different shot, but these are both warnings for the king. So let's just go with this while we're here, right? So it's interesting that one of the temptations of the king, because he has so many things to attend to, is to not bother to check about new factors, and to assume that old information is still current, right? So this is warning him not to do that and to rely on up-to-date intelligence on each and everything, okay? So I don't know. I think that's just like a good piece of advice for, again, on a lower level, for leaders. I'm gonna stop recording for 1 second here. Okay. So yeah, anything else you see from the Erie here? I don't really want to go into a second parish. I think that's a little bit different, but for the first one though. Oh, another one. Yischadish lo seichel is not just up-to-date facts, but there are new ways of thinking about things. And you see that this is one thing that causes institutional stagnation, where you have someone who, grew up with a certain culture or a certain way that things are done, and they don't know that times have changed, and they need to approach things differently. What would be an example of this? I mean, one example of this is, like, let's say in high schools, certain boys' high schools, let's say, where people are still working on the European model of heavy Gemara focus, and because that's really what they did in Europe, and like that is great, and then there's an ideal, but there's a reality now on the ground that some guys, some high school boys, are not going to continue on in their learning, or they don't relate to Gemara, and if you don't introduce them to other types of learning in high school, they're just never going to have a relationship with learning, So like, I don't care what we did in the European yeshiva. No, it's not, I don't care, but like, they might have done that in the European yeshivas, but that alone is not an argument for how things should be done in America in 2025. So and same thing with how business is done, same thing with how sales are done, like a lot of these, like you need to update your ways of thinking. So I think that's another thing of like chidush seichel. Okay, now back to Sadigon. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say that sounds like very different from Sadigon.
Yeah, it's very different from Sadigon. Yeah. So now let's go to Sadigon, right? I only paired them because it's prescriptive, not descriptive, right? So Sadigon says again that the king's hanhaga should be of the highest caliber, right? That he should, it's funny. This is like the Jewish version, the Jewish answer to Paro's avodah zarah, right? Because Paro viewed himself as a god, and my will is the will of God, and whatever the line of Prince of Egypt is the rising sun. I don't know. There's some he makes some statement that is like basically saying that his will as king is like equal to the rising setting of the sun, But this is saying no. It's that you should take God's hanhaga of the universe as a model and a standard for your hanhaga of your Medina, So what does that mean practically, I guess? Yeah.
I mean, I'd assume that it's not like his not saying don't have his as a seichel.
Right.
That doesn't make sense because he's still a human being.
Yeah.
I assume that it means in terms of laws and dinim, don't try to just, with each court case that comes up to you, say whatever you think is right, but then not be consistent from one case to the next.
Oh, okay, that's good. Right.
A set system of law that you're going to make sure to maintain and follow.
Right.
Even if you feel like it should be bent.
Right. Right. So this pertains a little bit to some of the discussions about teaching that we've had, is that one of the pitfalls of new teachers is repeatedly changing the rules by which they govern their classroom, which leads to instability, and chaos. Just like if, lahavdil, if the laws of physics changed every couple of weeks, you'd have total chaos on earth, So so yeah, it doesn't mean that you can't change or that you shouldn't change, especially because the heavens are already perfect. Hatzur Tami Polo Ki Chol D'Rachav Mishpat. A human being can't hope to achieve that, and especially if you're starting off as the melech, you need to work out a system, but you're striving for consistency of utmost efficiency. Yeah.
So just to clarify, Sadigon is saying that the melech should be running his kingdom in the most highest ethical level, or
he's not really saying, he just says of the highest quality, right?
Quality?
Yeah, Yoser Shetei Hanhagas HaMemshala in Yoser Tova Mimena. It should be the best quality of governance. And honestly, I don't know if this is the audience, but there are people historically who get into positions of power and then just dial it in, or they view it as a cushy job, and they're going to be the ones who cause the destruction, because they're not actually trying to be the best that they can be in that job.
I don't know why, but this is reminding me. Maybe because I did this recently with but
yeah,
we're doing this story with the Ashes Turkiya with Yoav sent her to David Melech with the whole issue with Shalom. And one of her arguments, according to the Barbanel, one of her arguments is look, you don't have to kill him, because look, you see God kind of have all, you see God, sort of, there's other, avenues you can take. So model or stuff after that.
Interesting. Right.
So this is almost there's laws of nature that you can't break. So why,
Right. I mean, it's very interesting. What this is opening up is there is a division of halachta b'drachav for leaders, and Hashem is the melech malchei hamalachim, and emulating God's malchus or God's hanhaga as melech is something that is again it fits into the halachta b'drachav, but it's not for the average person. And arguably, what's the not the safer, but the work for that is Pirkei Avos, right? Because Pirkei Avos is written for dayanim and for leaders, so that's interesting. Okay, one last one, just to the other genre of interpretations here is talking about investigating Hashem's Hashem. Okay, and there are a lot of people who say this. I want to go with the shortest one. I think this is the shortest one. Emmanuel Haromי says, Efshar kivin hachacham hazeb omro kavod elokim haster davar. So that's the previous pasuk. The glory of a king is the concealment of the matter. Lomar ki hachakir v'hadrisha me mahus Hashem yisale v'hemik biyadias ofane hanhagaso udavar. Oh wait, that's different. Okay, sorry. Sheshes ben Yitzchak Gorondi. Klomar, sorry, Ata Yivar Mash Amar Kitov Hu Lachkor Begova Hashmayim Klomar Begogalim Uvachol Inyani Hatchuna Ubisiduram Uvan Hagasam Eich Nisknu Vnisdru Al Seder Nachon V'Inyan Tamidi Bli Seder V'Hishinoi. So basically, you should investigate the heavens and the unchanging laws of nature that govern the world. V'Aretz La'omek Klomar B'Teva Hayisodos. Okay, same thing with the earth and all the stuff that preserves the earth. Okay, and he says. Misham Yisbonin Kihu Mashgiach Alehem. Sorry, I'll read it. Kulam Klomar B'Teva HaYisodos Kulam V'Hateva HaNoach V'Nimshach B'Chol Baalei HaChaim. Same thing with everything on earth. Kikasher Yisbonin Ha'adam Inyanim Elu. When you investigate these things, Yimtza B'Hem Inyanim Niflaim, you'll find wondrous things. Yakir Mehem Ki Yesh Poel Chacham Himtziam B'Chachmaso Ubara Osam B'Tokef Yado. You'll see that there's a wise creator who brought them into existence with his chachma and created them with his ability. Misham Yisbonin Ki Hu Mashgiach Aleim, and then you'll contemplate the fact that he's mashgiach on them. Rotza b'kiyumam, and he wants to preserve them. V'hu ha'amidam, and he set them up. Alkein roihu lachkor ki shnei ha'inyanim hanizkarim ratzalomar hashemayim ha'aretz ki haseg yasig b'mechkar hahu. You will achieve things through that investigation. V'od ki to'elenu ha'chakir hazos l'hakim hem gvuratzo uchvodo shel yoter b'reishis yisbarach v'yisala, and you'll get knowledge of God and recognition of Him. V'leiv malachim ein cheker kvar pirashti pa'amim rabos ki leiv yikar ikar hadavar kmo odenu chai b'leiv ha'Allah. Ha'ila ki kmo shehalev hu ikar ba'adam kin yikare ko ikar lev. So that's my theory. This is the first time I've seen it. Lev means the center of something. Okay, and so if you're talking about a fool, that's emotions. If you're talking about chacham, it's mind. Okay, so al kain ye'amar ki ein hachakir nefeles umasegas lahasig beikar hav kavod yisbarach v'hasaga mevueres. The lev cannot grasp the ikar hakavod of God. With a clear hasaga, kasher yusugu shar ha'inyanim, like it can with other things. Aval roy lahachrish lahastir davarav. It's proper to be silent and to conceal the matters. V'zehu kvodo b'hastir uvhalim v'limnoa mimena hachakira kilo tipo shem hachakira al etzem kvodo yisbarach. So I think that's just saying that you cannot know God's essence or His essential glory, and maybe he's alluding to the fact that you can approach it through negative knowledge. That's why he says you can't get clear knowledge. But it's differentiating between what you can know of God, which is His masim, and what you can't know of God, which is His essence. So that's another thing that several meforshim do. It's not really Mishlei derech nigla the way we learn Mishlei derech nigla. So that's why I don't know if there's an application in the derech nigla here, but still a good idea. Okay, this was a very fruitful pasuk. I was a little worried because we arrived at Shot so quickly yesterday, but maybe that's going to be the new thing with these things. Last thing, I think I got to go because I have to teach a class at 9:10.
Yeah, I'm just remembering that I think it was, I don't remember who it was, but it said that the Anshe Chizkiyahu widened the lattice on the so you could see the the golden apple. I
didn't recall that. All right, that's okay. If you could find that, let me know. Is that something I read or you read?
You read that.
Oh, okay. So I don't remember it. All right, so I'll have to look. All right. Take care. Thanks for coming.
All right. Thank you.